This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This one's wife. WME has dropped her. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You'll recall that some time ago that this one's wife was represented by Sunshine Sachs, and then they parted ways. The suggestion was that this one's wife wasn't paying them. There were also further suggestions that she was just regarded as too difficult to deal with. She then found herself being represented by WME and had direct access to Uber agent and recently confirmed billionaire Ari Emanuel. You'd have to question the powers of this agency because they've not been able to prevent her receiving repeated poor publicity, prevent her from making repeated missteps, and generally engaging in fuck-up after fuck-up. Is it the agency's fault, or is it simply a case, once again, that you can't polish a turd? Well, according to Mara Siegler and Sarah Nathan writing for Page 6, what a royal pain. This one's wife has been dropped by WME, multiple sources tell Page 6, after months of speculation about her relationship with the top Hollywood agency. But the agency denies it has given the royal star the flush and says it's still working with her. We're told that the Duchess of Sussex has not held any meetings with the agency's Uber power broker, Ari Emanuel, since January 2024, though she is believed to have met with her day-to-day agents. Well, Emanuel has probably got more important people to deal with that actually make him some money, rather than this fuckwit. And unfortunately, some poor buggers further down the food chain are left with having to deal with the repeated calls from this one's wife, ranting and raving about ensuring that adverse publicity is squashed. The fact is that much of the adverse publicity about her has not been quashed, demonstrating that Emanuel either can't, or more likely wouldn't, do anything to prevent her exposure in that regard. Quite simply, he probably made the decision, I've got better clients to look after, I've got better people that I can engage with who make me money. This individual is a hopeless case. I'm not wasting any further time on her. After all, you don't become a billionaire and the head of a powerful agency by making repeatedly poor decisions. He recognises that she is a busted flush, that she's not worth bothering with, and therefore his very valuable time is placed elsewhere. No longer would he seek to pull strings, call in favours to protect her. She was on her own. An industry insider has said that this one's wife was let go because she was too demanding and difficult to work with. No shit. Really? Well, that is a surprise, isn't it? As we all thought that she was a living saint, an embodiment of compassion sent to this earth to demonstrate to us all how you can turn up and do good. In actual fact, we all know that she's demanding. We all know that she's difficult to work with. How do we know this? One, many people have said as such, and the evidence in that regard has been increasing. For instance, the report from the Hollywood Reporter. Once upon a time, Emanuel probably would have prevented that report from coming out. Now he couldn't be bothered. Secondly, we know this in relation to this one's wife because she's a narcissist. That the type of narcissist that she is one whereby, driven by her sense of entitlement, it has to be the way that she wants it. And if you deviate from that, you're met with problems because it threatens her need for control. You see, with this one's wife, she is incapable of thinking through. Actually, you make a very good point there. And although you have disagreed with me, your point is a sensible one. That's going to bring me greater reward. Let's go with that. Her brain doesn't work like that. It's prevented from doing so because of her narcissism. What happens is, somebody makes a suggestion. They're unlikely to go, "Oi, Ozempic face, you're fucking useless, and you've turned up in this meeting again with one of your half-baked ideas that you've pinched from someone else. It's so obvious. Good Lord. You really are useless. And you've come up with this idea about a show about you living with bumblebees. It's toss. It's bollocks. What on earth are you doing? Nobody's going to speak to her like that. You could imagine that if somebody did, that she would have a rather indignant reaction to it. But instead, they may well talk because, of course, they're used to treading on eggshells with her, but they're more likely to say something along the lines of, well, that's an interesting idea that you've put forward. If I may, with some tweaks and adjustments, I think that we could improve upon that and provide some real meaningful engagement, yada, yada, yada. The person then goes on to explain, based upon their experience and expertise, a series of steps that would actually be advantageous to this one's wife. What happens? All she hears through the distortion field of her narcissism is, this is a better idea, i.e., they're threatening my control. She doesn't think they are threatening my control. That's what's going on in her subconscious. But when somebody politely, sensibly, constructively suggests that her idea isn't the one to go with and they've got an alternative, all she hears is, you're telling me I'm shit, you're telling me I'm useless, and that threatens her need for control. Thus, her ignited fury comes to the surface, unless facade management gets in there, and she will respond in a particular way where she'll argue, be dismissive, give someone a glare, suggest, no, thanks for your input, but I think my way is the better one. Based on what? Your extensive experience of getting it wrong. And this is what people have to deal with. She is incapable of accepting the input of other people because her narcissism isn't sophisticated enough to do so. She's incapable of accepting the input of other people because her narcissism just tells her every single time, this is a threat to control, reject it. It isn't so much about what is actually being said, but what it represents. Accordingly, this is why she becomes demanding and difficult to work with. It's unclear exactly when she was dropped, though WME insists they are still working with her. WME continues to represent this one's wife and Archwell, said a rep. It probably is the usual case that you don't turn around and say, thank God that fuckwit has gone. Christ almighty, she was the worst client, wasn't she? Ringing us at all hours, bringing us through the night, even though there was nobody here, leaving us ridiculous voicemails, pinging emails, demanding that we do all of these things, her idiotic ideas. Good Lord, we had a good laugh about them, but whoa, you never wanted a person-on-person meeting with her. She ponged, and she was horrible to you. They're not going to turn around and say that, so they're just going to offer the straight bat of, yes, we're still representing her. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she's told, you need to go elsewhere. Sources said the agency is still working on some of her projects for Archwell, the foundation she runs with her husband, Prince Harry. Again, that might be the case that they're operating for Archwell but not her, or again, they're just playing the straight bat. In addition to this, page 6 states that this one's wife had an outburst last month. Right after the holidays, when the Duchess demanded a meeting and expected decks and plans. Though it's unclear if this was for herself or Archwell. She could be becoming a DJ now. This led to a dispute, and Ari was done with her, said the insider. The incident was confirmed by another source. The news comes as this one's wife prepares to launch her new Netflix lifestyle show with Love, This One's Wife, next Tuesday. This one's wife had only been with the top agency since April 2023 and was being looked after personally by WME big hitters Brad Slater, who represents Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Jill Smoller, who represents the one-time Suits star's longtime friend, tennis champ Serena Williams. Another Hollywood source said, I don't know what those projects are, but WME is definitely not working on this one's wife's personal business. Another setback for this one's wife. Her agency doesn't want her. A consequence of this, well, the fact that they've dropped her, that wounds her. It tells her that she's useless. It threatens her need for control, as you would expect. But it also adds to the repeated failures that she's been experiencing as of late. It also means that some guardrails that hitherto might have been of assistance in swatting away difficult stories, in seeking out opportunities for her, in encouraging, albeit reluctantly, other WME people in terms of stars from that stable, inviting her to things, allowing her to turn up, will dry up. That means the opportunity to be seen at events reduces because, after all, who would really want to invite her? The big ticket events aren't going to want to do so. She just makes it all about her, and she pales by comparison next to some of the genuine big hitters. This is a huge problem for this one's wife, and it remains to be seen if anybody else would want to pick her up of note. But it means there's a drying up of opportunities, the loss of kudos by a premier agency wanting to have no more to do with her, and yet another threat to control stacking up. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.